Here's some more things I would say. Have a mentor. We chatted about that at the beginning. Have a mentor. Have many mentors. Open your eyes up to everybody that's out there. Osaka has a wonderful program for mentoring, and you can have a global access to mentoring. The last two are these: be kind.
Mm.
We are in an industry where there is high pressure, there is burnout, there is pain, there are incidents, there are problems. It's never easy. I know I might have made it at the beginning sound like it's easy. It is not easy. None of us can be an expert in everything our business does. None of us can be perfect. Mistakes get made. We all need to be kind to each other. And we all need to help each other through. And that's another value of joining an association, to share our experiences and to help each other, if not do what we've done, not make the same mistakes, because I think humankind has a history of doing that, but at least knowing there is somebody out there that can empathize with the pain we may feel. CISOs getting burned out is a common theme today. The very last one is this: soft skills. Soft skills are key. You can know everything you need to know about technical stuff, but if you can't communicate and negotiate, if you lack empathy and self-awareness, you will struggle.
Mm.
All of those things set you apart from the person who can just do the technical.
Right. I'm learning. I'm still
Yeah, look,
learning.
our industry, and particularly with women, I know we had a question, and maybe you want to get to this one in a moment: mentorship and diversity.
Yes.
One of the things I've seen is the thing called imposter syndrome. I believe I had imposter syndrome when I first started out in this role, and sitting the CISM exam was probably the first time, maybe the second time. I did CISA certification beforehand, but sitting that credential and achieving that helped me overcome imposter syndrome. So I think for a lot of people, particularly women, is what I guess I've heard in through experience, that people feel like they're an imposter in this space. In the cybersecurity profession, there are so many experts, in inverted commas. Many of them think they are but aren't, and many of them absolutely are. But my thoughts around this imposter syndrome: get yourself a mentor who can help build confidence and capability. As I said, read and learn, and feel comfortable. The phrase I used before, self-awareness: be comfortable in your skin. That is hard to do, I know, from personal experience. But I really think that the more you can build confidence, and I think confidence is an attribute of most people in cybersecurity. Um, but that's really helpful to do that. Try and overcome imposter syndrome through confidence and building your own competence, and chalking up those things that show to other people, hey, I can do this. I've done this, you know.
I agree 100%. Like you said earlier about mentorship, I personally am a beneficiary of the mentorship program of ISACA. We need to learn from those that have gone ahead of us, those that have, various experiences, and even those that can just look and hone into the skills that we might not even know that we have. Like personally, my mentor was the one that, told me, you like to write. Why don't you hone in more into this? And when I just, took that up and I started writing more, blogs, content, articles, and all that, of which, I've sent some to Isaac and it got published. It's because I had a mentor, he wasn't looking at me from the technical perspective, in isolation, but just those soft
Yeah,
skills, like you said. And again,
yeah.
communication, we're going to get into it in a minute because I'm going to talk about volunteering. I want to ask about volunteering, but let me ask this mentorship again so you can expand more into it.
Mhm.
So your involvement in ISACA's One in Tech program, maybe discuss what steps can the industry take toward greater, diversity and inclusion within, this fair.
Let me talk a little bit about mentorship. The key for me for mentorship is that it's a two-way thing still. All human communication is two ways. The mentor will gain from it just as much as the mentee. And I feel that if both parties aren't gaining something from it, then perhaps it's time to move on to
Mhm.
some new mentor or mentee. But mentorship builds that confidence. And I think it should also build curiosity, right? Your
Yeah.
mentor build a curiosity in you. And, it started a fire that said, can I do that? I probably can. Why don't I try to do that? And so one of the things of mentorship that I never had when I was growing up. So I started work in 82. I would say up until maybe a decade into that career, I did not have a mentor. I had nobody who gave me good advice. So, what a mentor does is they give you timely and personal, nuanced, targeted advice and guidance. You can choose to accept it or not. You can choose to act on it or not, but they're there as your friend, more likely, a professional friend, and not, someone you go out for dinner with or anything. But, they're there as a professional guide for you to ask questions and for them to ask questions of you. And
Mhm.
a really powerful relationship there should lift both of you.
Mhm.
And it should provide that kind of timely interaction that sees the mentee kind of grow, become perhaps more focused on what they want,
Yeah.
maybe explore new things, whatever is needed. The DEI question, diversity, equity, inclusion. I think there's still a challenge. I think the challenge is less today than it was in the 80s when I started out.
Mhm.
I do remember the 80s not having much in the way of certainly not much diversity in IT, and that's still a challenge for us in the industry. Very little inclusion, and almost the phrase equity probably didn't exist, I would say.
Mhm.
And I have personal stories about not having been hired for a role because of a disability I have.
Oh.
And back then I had no, there was no pathway for me to resolve that. I just took it on the chin, to use that cliche. And it took me maybe a decade to work out the effect of that. So I know firsthand the need for equity, the need to equalize the access people have. When we look at things like kind of look at me, a 60-year-old white, what is it, white male, pale and stale, and having a lived experience through the need for me to have access to equity
Mhm.
has perhaps, I don't know, maybe it was just innate in me, helped me see the need for everybody to have a fair go, is the phrase we use in Australia, fair access, equal access. And that as a male manager, I've had plenty of times where I've employed for inclusion and diversity. And I think the key to it really is, or no, the challenge. Maybe the challenge. Um, I'm confident the next generation, your generation perhaps, um, are through the harder part of that. But I think your generation has seen a lot of power shared through diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think we'll see that continue. And look, mentoring and volunteering and access to networking and just simply mingling opens people's eyes. And the more we do that, the better we are.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, you've already touched on volunteering, but I'm going to ask specific questions now about it. What role do you think it plays in the development of upcoming, cybersecurity professionals?
Yeah, your question dropped out a bit, but I've got it here so I could hear it. Maybe your recording might not have. But anyway, let me kick into this one.
Oh, okay.
Um, as you probably guessed, I have a really strong belief in volunteering. I've used a phrase before. You kind of get more out of it the more you put into it. Now, for some of us, we've been perhaps lucky. I don't know, serendipity. I'm not sure. But those of us that have volunteered, Many of the people I know that have volunteered are now kind of working in roles and doing things perhaps that have added to their careers. But
Mm-hmm.
the key thing I think about volunteering is it takes you out of your day job and it gets you to do things that aren't normally your day job. You
Yep.
know, like you could be volunteering for a local chapter and you might be their treasurer or their secretary. You
Yep.
might be running membership drives. You might be out on community day. None of those things are the things that would be on your CV or in your job description. And so it opens the volunteering opens every person up to doing things which are outside of their day job,
Yep.
but maybe but build their day job. You know, you're interacting with people in new and different ways that your day job doesn't allow.
Yes.
And so taking the opportunity to volunteer, putting your hand up to say I can help with that, is really empowering. But the other thing is it lifts people up, right? Without volunteers, Osaka would not function, I guess, in the way it does. Every chapter is run by volunteers. Every event we go to is run by volunteers. There are some paid people around. That's fine and that's needed.
Mm-hmm.
But volunteerism in Osaka really does allow us all to share what we wish to share with each other and
Mm-hmm.
provide those opportunities. Um, and I've been lucky to be able to volunteer locally for Sydney chapter, regionally across Oceania on things like CAC's conferences back in the day they were run, or go to chapter leaders meetings and meet with the chapter leaders and others, and volunteer internationally and travel to Chicago many times, but working with wonderful people, right? Absolutely wonderful people who are family. That now, we communicate all the time, and we reach out to each other when we need something, and the global family doesn't happen unless you put your hand up to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And no one ever says, no, we don't want you to volunteer in Osaka.
It's true.
Everyone
It's
says,
true.
sure, come on in. We'd love you to be a part of it.
Yes.
The global family. So volunteering looks great on a CV, right? I was a director on a chapter. That looks great on a CV when you share it around.
Mm-hmm.
But the contributions you make and the rewards you get from it are far greater than what you write on your CV. Far
100%.
greater.
Thank you so much for saying that. And you also get to, like you mentioned, get to learn something new. For instance, in my chapter, I volunteer as a marketing. I started, as an apprentice. I didn't know nothing about marketing, but I just volunteered and I started learning. And today, some people they would say, Abigail, you're so good at this. I'm like, I started knowing nothing, you know.
Yeah,
As an apprentice, I learned and I'm still learning, from the director, and as well as even communication, all those soft skills, they all come together.
yeah,
And then the happiness of also contributing, for the
yeah,
greater good. You,
yeah.
you can put a price on
And
that.
absolutely. And Osaka isn't just volunteers. There's a wonderful head office and some fantastic chapter leader support people there. Who almost every chapter, well, probably every person in the chapter leadership across the world would know the team I'm referring to. They do an amazing job. They're always there to help. And look, volunteering. Um, I was speaking with a guy here in Sydney a month or two ago, and he actually timely, serendipity, what's the word? Coincidence. He
Mhm.
put a LinkedIn post today, and he quoted a phrase that I said to him. It was his very first Osaka event. I saw him sort of standing in the corner, not knowing who to say hello to, feeling a
Oh,
little bit like out of his depth, maybe.
yeah.
I went up and I said hi, and we got chatting, and I used this phrase. I said, volunteering changed my life. And I
Mm,
said, and I'm serious, it changed my life. And it, to be honest, to be really serious, it changed the life of my family. My family have traveled with me for Osaka events. They've met many people through Osaka. And without it, I wouldn't be where I am. Maybe my family would still be wonderful and do all that stuff. But Osaka just is such a really powerful way to interact in the world we're in.
mhm.
And you know, diversity, equity, inclusion, Osaka, a great place for us to start to share ideas with people who don't have the same ideas as us. This
Perfect.
podcast is a wonderful example of that too.
Yes, 100%. Thank you so much. And so I'm going to throw in the last question. So, looking into the
Okay.
future, Gary, what are some of the biggest challenges and opportunities you foresee in the next decade? How can businesses prepare for emerging threats, driven by technologies, etc.?
Yeah. When I read this, um, I thought that I would worry less about the emerging threats.
Mm,
It's something that I talk about in presentations. I'm presenting in Canberra next week. I presented in Pune a month or so ago on roughly the same topic as around changing the security mindset
mm,
to stop thinking so much about threats and risks and vulnerabilities and start thinking about how do we architect business practice to properly use technology to make us safer, to make the world a better place, to help us use the absolutely amazing things that we see that technology can do for us. So that's probably the first thing. The second one is I'd like to see our cyber industry put the accountability back to business on the choices business is making around how much security is enough. The more I'm reading about CISOs who believe that, and I'll make up some flack for this comment, who believe that they are responsible for the security state of their business, I think that is misguided. I think that a CISO role is, I don't know what percentage, but 80, 90, a large percent advisory and consulting in a business. And when you start having CISOs making or perhaps guiding cyber threat risk responses by leadership, it's really helping business abrogate accountability
mm,
for the business being secure. And I think there's a real challenge with that. Um, and businesses can have poor security because the cybersecurity people believe they own it. And the cybersecurity people will then complain they don't have budget. So put budget where it belongs, business process, and help business spend the budget to secure their process. Secondly, I think what goes with that is the re-emergence, because I believe it has disappeared. We're starting to see it. The re-emergence, the resurgence of security engineering, systems thinking, security by design, we're starting to see appear, privacy by design,
mm,
architecture, things like SABSA. All of these things are there, or these tools have been around. And if organizations were using them, we wouldn't have the dire straits that we have today with systems on the internet being so easily broken by quote unquote, this is a local thing, lazy criminals. If criminals are lazy, then our control framework is inadequate.
mm,
They, right? That's pretty straightforward. But the most important thing about the future, I think, of cybersecurity and perhaps the future of technology for humankind is the wonderful things that it can do for us. And I've seen, just recently, I was in recently, gosh, May, time has flown. I was in Phoenix for the awards for the conference in Phoenix, and there was a presenter there, Adil Akhtar, and his business Psionic, um, showing how the ability hand can help people with limb difference and amputation and things operate in in society today, using the technology, using Internet of Things, using AI, using all of the wonderful things. So I think that the real change for cyber perhaps is to focus on, and I'll go back to my opening, one of my comments in the beginning,
mm,
what must we do well in business for us to succeed? And just simply adding to that, what must we do well in security to help our business succeed? I think that's a far more powerful question than asking what can go wrong. and try to deal with the infinite risk scenarios that that question proposes.
Thank you so much. I mean, Garry, thank you for sharing your
You're welcome.
wealth of experience, your insights, practical advice with us today. You've given us so much to think about and act upon. Guys, that wraps up our insightful fireside chat with Garry Barnes. We hope you have found this insightful and inspiring as we did. As Gary highlighted, good security isn't just about protection, it's a business enabler. So, whether you're just starting your career or leading cybersecurity initiatives, we hope these insights empower you to take the next steps confidently. Thank you for tuning into this session as part of our Cybersecurity Awareness Month initiatives. Stay connected with us for more resources, events, and discussions that continue to promote a safer and more secure digital landscape. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious. Okay, bye now.
Thank you, Abigail.